Has Meghan's podcast run into trouble before it's even begun? Plus, Katie's back.
I am. Hello. Sorry to have been off, but I'm back, and today is one of the most beloved royals' birthdays. Prince Louis has just turned 6.
Hello and welcome to Heirs and Spares, the show where we bring you insight and opinion into the lives of two very famous royal couples on both sides of the Atlantic. I'm Kinsey Schofield, and I'll be bringing you updates on the Duke and Duchess of Sussex right here in California.
And I'm Katie Nicholl, and I'll have all the latest news from the Prince and Princess of Wales here in the UK.
Katie, so glad to see you again. I missed you tremendously, and we have so much to catch up on. First of all, let's talk about Meghan Markle's upcoming podcast. Now, Lemonada redistributed Meghan's Archetypes podcast. This was exclusively made for Spotify. They've slapped a new beautiful photo on it. It's out there in the world now on all major streaming platforms. So anybody could listen to Meghan talk to Mariah Carey, Paris Hilton, some of these people she sat down with previously, but we were promised new content, and apparently that is now on hold. According to Richard Eden at the Daily Mail, Lemonada just does not want to compete with American Riviera Orchard's launch. They don't want to compete with this new Netflix series, and they want to take things slow going forward. We might not get a new podcast from Meghan Markle until 2025. Did you listen to Archetypes, and what was your reaction to it?
I did. I listened to quite a few of them, actually. I mean, Meghan certainly knows how to pull in an A-lister. I think that's fair to say, isn't it, Kenzie? I mean, she really does. She sort of gets your dream team lineup when it comes to a podcast show. And, I'm not sure if I blame Lemonade for doing this, because I think, hot off the heels of Spotify, because it wasn't that long ago that we had Archetypes, they've got to be seen to be doing something different. She can't very well roll out the same guests, and possibly this is just something that needs a little bit more time. And I think particularly pitching it against Netflix series, as you say, and of course her big website, there does seem to be quite a lot of buzz around the Sussexes and what they're doing at the moment. So it sounds like this is a case of pacing and perhaps making sure that the content is right. I think the worst thing would be for people to feel this is more of the same from Meghan. I think what's so crucial to this couple in terms of what they're doing in Hollywood is that each thing they do feels different and feels fresh and different from the last project.
That's right, giving everybody kind of a breath. And then, oh, she's back. Here she is. I did feel like with Spotify, I mean, we certainly saw it, 13 episodes, and then they cut ties between Meghan's Archetypes and the Christmas special. It feels like there are different expectations here with this new company. And maybe that tells us that the price tag isn't necessarily, or that maybe the expectations are not as intense because the paycheck, I should say, is not necessarily as hefty as the Spotify relationship. Do you think that Meghan went with this smaller company because she wanted to have the type of freedom that she did not have at Spotify? She wanted to be able to set her own goals and boundaries.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think a lot of it probably was down to the paycheck with Spotify, and maybe she didn't have the full creative freedom that she wanted. I mean, when you listen to those podcasts, you feel very much like she is in the director's chair, that she's leading that conversation. Obviously, when she sits down with the likes of Serena and friends and people that she knows well, she's bringing that sort of close-knit circle to a wider audience. So that in itself is going to be very valuable to Spotify. And I think the plan was to have a second series. So maybe it was too expensive for Spotify. Maybe the listening figures weren't quite what they expected. And so Meghan's clearly sort of wanting to continue this type of venture, but with someone else. And possibly she will get more creative freedom here. I think it'll be interesting to see what she does, who she's going to sit down with, and I'm just wondering if maybe for her second podcast, it might be something that's going to fit in more with her lifestyle website, with travel, with well-being and the sort of thing that I think we're going to see more of on her website. Maybe that's why it hasn't happened just yet, because we've only had very limited content, haven't we, from this website? I mean, we've had a post on Jams, a holding page, and I think that's pretty much it.
I know that you've been doing this for a long time, so I imagine you were asked very similar questions to me throughout the last 3 years. Do you find it a little bit bizarre that we went answering questions about Meghan running for president of the United States to having to talk about jam
It was
creation and jam distribution on social media?
Well, I know it was extraordinary, wasn't it? I mean, I remember being told that one of the reasons she never wanted to give up her American citizenship was because she would never completely let go of those political ambitions. And listen, running for president perhaps is a step too far, but I wouldn't sort of rule out a political career in some sort of a context for Meghan, because I think that's something she's very passionate about. Did I expect to see her marketing jam? No, not really. It feels a little bit underwhelming. I mean, clearly she's very talented in the kitchen. She's a good cook. But I thought the jam was just, yeah, I think underwhelming is the word I would use. I mean, when you looked at the actual product itself, and I'm sure it tasted delicious, but the sort of handwritten labels were very sweet but slightly peeling off. But maybe that's part of it. Maybe she doesn't want to just have this sort of polished perfection that we've seen with Spotify and the Netflix docuseries. Maybe she just wanted to go for something a bit more grounded, a bit more Earth Mama, and perhaps a little bit more relatable. But then again, what is the price tag on that jam? I don't think most people can afford it.
I know I cannot. I want to stay on the Sussexes for just a moment here. New reports coming out, I believe that this started circulating via The Sun, that Harry and Meghan will not be including their children in their upcoming Netflix shows. This is about polo. So, I wouldn't expect to see the children in a polo program. American Riviera Orchard lifestyle-ish stuff from Meghan on her new show about gardening, in the kitchen with Meghan, and friendship entertaining. You might see mama moments there, but there is within this article, they say that there's kind of a back and forth between Harry and Meghan, where Harry really wants to shield the children 100%. And it's Meghan that's open to allowing the children a little bit of screen time. We did see them very protected throughout the original Netflix series. Does it surprise you that Harry would want to shield the children 100%? Or based on, watching his upbringing, do you kind of understand where he'd be coming from there?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's completely understandable that he wouldn't want his children to be appearing on the screen. I mean, as you say, we sort of saw fleeting appearances in the Netflix docuseries. Who knows whether Archie's actually got on a polo pony yet? I bet you he probably has, because Prince Harry was taught to ride from a very, very young age. I mean, I think from the age of 2, pretty much as soon as he was able to walk, he was in the saddle. So I'd be surprised if Archie hadn't been on a horse, but I'm not surprised that he's not going to be popping up in the documentary. And I think, the biggest problem that they have is being such a privacy conscious couple and a litigious couple. I mean, they pursued and are continuing to pursue the newspapers through the courts over privacy as one of many other issues. I think Harry just knows that he would be deemed to be being very hypocritical if he was then showcasing his children in any sort of documentary where he's got a financial interest, or not even necessarily a financial interest. I just think that idea of putting his children out there. And I think when you look at how they're raising their children in California, you don't see pap shots of them, well, very, very rarely. They clearly want to protect their children. And, I possibly Meghan is perhaps a little more relaxed and open about it, but I suspect she's probably also very protective of them, wanting to keep them out of the spotlight. But certainly you can understand why Harry would want that. I mean, he hated the fact that from such a young age he was exposed to the press, to the limelight, and he's absolutely not going to want that for his own children. It's one of the reasons he says he chose California, because he feels he can protect his children from the media, away from the sort of ruthless British media as he sees them, and he enjoys more privacy over there.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that sometimes we forget that Meghan started from nothing. She is a self-made woman. So she had the luxury of kind of creating her narrative until she lost control. And that was because she was with somebody like Prince Harry. And that is just, you do lose all control. Now you are a worldwide figure, and you're not just this girl in LA working with publicists in LA to, build a brand. And so every once in a while, she might think that they still have control of the narrative, or they could get it back. We just saw them hiring 2 new publicists. But I think the reality is, when you are a member of the British royal family, there is just no control. They're too big of an entity, and there's too much interest. And we saw it specifically with the Princess of Wales. It got so out of control that I feel like we all were exhausted at the end of the day. And I remember being like, I don't know how much longer I can do this. I'm tired of talking about online rumors. I'm tired of having to respond to anonymous Twitter followers. So it does feel like there's something about the British royal family that it is just too massive of a machine to try to have full PR control over everything.
Well, I think you're right, and I think, as you say, when you saw the Kate narrative over her health sort of spinning out of control, it was very clear that the palace had lost control of that narrative. But we know from Harry and Meghan that they do everything really in their power to control that narrative, to make sure their side of the story is out, whether that's through Harry's book or the docuseries that they sat down and did. The interviews that they've given, they very much want to get their narrative out there. And I don't think they have any issue with that, but I do think when it comes to protecting their children, the easiest way to protect their children and to maintain that level of privacy for their children is to keep them well and truly out of the spotlight. You do see celebrities sort of flaunting their children. It does happen. But I think if Harry and Meghan sort of open that Pandora's box, it would be potentially really troublesome for them, and very, very hard to then sort of take any legal action for any newspapers or publications that did print pictures of their children, because of course they've kind of lost the argument. So I don't think we will expect to see them at all. Of course, the big question is, will we see Archie and Lilibet over here in the UK anytime soon? We know that Harry is very, very keen to come over to Britain and to bring his family over to Britain. But while he's got this outstanding court case with the Home Office over his security here, I think, Kinsey, it's very unlikely that we're going to see Harry and his family over here as a foursome anytime soon.
Well, let's talk about Prince William and the Princess of Wales's little Louis, because a lot of us woke up on Wednesday under the impression that we weren't going to get a picture of Prince Louis. Tell us what happened and how the day unfolded.
Yes, it was a happy surprise, really, because usually we do get a bit of a heads up that we're going to get a picture released, and we've all become very used to having these gorgeous pictures of the Wales's children photographed by the Princess of Wales. And we did get a heads up actually just hours before it was published online on their social media channel. So a slightly different way of distributing these images, not to the press first as has happened in the past. And it's a lovely candid shot taken, we're told, by the Princess of Wales at the family's home earlier this week. We haven't got any details about how they will be celebrating. A 6th birthday party, I can imagine, is going to involve friends at some point. Birthday cake, lots of presents, seeing his extended family. Louis is very, very close to Kate's parents, his grandparents, Carol and Mike. He spent a lot of time with them over the Easter. So I think it'll be slightly pared down, of course, because Kate's going through treatment at the moment, but they will make sure that this birthday is marked. And I have to say, Kinsey, when it comes to the Waleses, you never see them doing big, ostentatious birthday parties, with ponies and petting zoos and everything else. They tend to keep it really low key, and I'm sure that Kate will have done what she does for every child on every birthday, which is bake the cake and be enjoying that over a family tea party.
So sweet. I love to imagine her in the kitchen, and we've actually seen some of her in the kitchen with the fixtures of her and the babies. I believe they were cooking cookies or something so cute.
Yeah, she often has them in the kitchen, and this is obviously a really difficult time for them as a family. Kate's focus is very much on her treatment and her recovery between those treatments, and so of course she's going to be spending a lot more time at home. And so I would imagine that things like baking and spending time with the children will be really, really joyful moments for her, and things that she enjoys and looks forward to, and things that will distract her from the obvious concerns and worries as she goes through what she's going through. I suppose it would be very nice to know that there will be royal visitors for Prince Louis. We know that the King and the Queen are both in Scotland at the moment. They were photographed on April the 21st, leaving church at Crathie Kirk. That was, of course, the late Queen Elizabeth's birthday. So I think it was a sort of private moment to mark that important anniversary. But I'm sure they will be seeing Louis at some point. The King is very, very fond of his little grandson. And I think the nation is too. I mean, Kinsey, there are so many wonderful moments, aren't there, involving Prince Louis. Up there, usually on the balcony, I don't know, covering his ears or sort of screaming in mock horror or doing his double-handed wave. I mean, he's a really gorgeous little boy who I think clearly brings a lot of love and fun into not just the Wales family, but the wider family as well, and enjoys, as I say, a very close relationship with the King.
I just love that scene where Prince William kind of leans over to the king and says, "Do you mind if Louis comes over?" I believe he was perhaps Prince Charles at the time, but Prince William leans over and says, "Do you mind if Louis comes over there?" And then Louis comes running over, jumps in the king's lap, and you could just tell how much he adores his grandfather. And it almost opens us up to a completely different side of King Charles that we didn't even know existed. How just kind of ooey gooey affectionate he is with these babies that are also in love with. So it's so fun to see. Really quickly, I don't want to dwell too much on this, but I am curious to know if you feel like the Waleses are setting new standards, setting new boundaries here with this photo being released on social media, or do you think this is just, the circumstances with everything so difficult that's going on in their lives right now?
I think it's likely to be because of circumstances, and who knew, I suppose, whether the princess would feel up to taking a picture. And so I think at the moment we just have to be perhaps a little bit more open to things happening spontaneously and perhaps a little differently from usual. But I think the most important thing when you consider the last photo that went out is that we are still going to get these pictures. I remember people being quite concerned after Photogate, which is, of course, that now infamous Mother's Day photograph, which backfired so badly for the Princess of Wales. You'll recall there were all sorts of allegations over digital manipulation, and the princess then took to Twitter to explain that she had carried out some minor alterations via digital editing on that picture. But of course, that just fueled the whole conspiracy rumor that was going into overdrive on the internet about her health at the time. And it did backfire on her very badly. And I think a lot of people were concerned that perhaps that would mean she wasn't going to be so willing to do these sorts of candid family photographs. This one of Louis, we are told, wasn't digitally retouched at all. And I think, that sort of disclaimer is really important to avoid what we've seen in the past. But she gets the most wonderful pictures of her children in a way that other royal photographers simply wouldn't. They may be more technically gifted than the princess, but no one gets the same smiles as the princess when she is behind the lens. And we know Prince George is following in his mother's footsteps as a keen photographer. So I, for one, am delighted that we still get to get those photographs. And speaking of photographs, Kinsey, just before we go, I must mention that there is a video, I don't know if you've seen it, it's gone viral on TikTok and it's been picked up everywhere else, of some of the highlights of William and Kate's wedding, of course, 29th of April 2011. And in a few days' time, they will be celebrating their 13th wedding anniversary. Well, this video has had something like, let me just see, 450,000 times it's been viewed on social media and liked more than 23,000 times. Newsweek have written up about it, and it seems to be getting more traction. So I think that's also indicative of the affection for this couple, and not just them as a family, but William and Kate as a love story. How they will be celebrating their 13th wedding anniversary, who knows? But that's coming up on the 29th.
Well, it will be a special one, full of, just appreciation for everything, for the fact that they have each other, that they've been with each other for so long. And I feel like aside from what's they're dealing with health wise, I do think that Prince William recognizes that he hit the jackpot with Kate because he grew up in such a dysfunctional environment, and he has such a pleasant, uplifting and sweet woman that he chose. And what a blessing that he was able to find her.
Yeah, I always remember being told by a source that when Kate had had been told by a friend, oh gosh, you're so lucky to be dating Prince William when they were at St Andrews. She turned around and said, no, he's lucky to be dating me. And I think she absolutely hit the nail on the head. Well, I think, Kinsey, that's all we've got time for this week. We will, of course, be back next week for a brand new episode.
All right, if you agree with us, disagree with us, let us know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.